Prime Minister Solberg, thank you very much for finding time to talk to us today. You're here at the World Forum for Democracy, looking at education and democracy, the role of education in democracy. What do you think the future of democracy is? How do you see it going?
Well, I think, of course, we are in a bit challenging times now because we see countries that we were hoping to become more democratic is maybe becoming a little bit less democratic. And I think, but I still believe that there's a positive movement. There will always be a push forward and a step backwards. And I don't believe it's possible to build legitimacy around policies and decisions without having a democratic basis for that. When
you say that countries are becoming less democratic, what do you mean?
You see that there is more breaking of human rights. All the indicators show that the freedom of expression is narrowed in several countries. And of course that the rule of law is sometimes also challenged.
Why do you think that's happening?
I think it's happening due to crisis, conflicts, challenges, economic challenges in some countries, and because building societies that build on the rule of law, democracies that goes from the grassroots and upwards, it takes a long time. You need generations to really build that democratic framework. So after the wall fell in Europe, we had this movement of more elections, more democracy building around the world, and we are now facing with the fact that it's taking a small step backwards. But I strongly believe that it will come back. But we need to make sure that we are focusing on the fundamentals, and the fundamentals for democracy is not just voting; it's rule of law. It's freedom of expression, and it's the right to organize a civic society that can control and question policymakers in their countries.
The starting point for the Democracy Forum is that education has a role to play in promoting and building democracy. And you seem to put the pressure or the emphasis in everything you said on gender equality and the need to support women, girls' education. Do you think that it's all about gender equality?
Well, it's of course about everybody's need for being educated, and schools that learn critical thinking, that learn to question the decisions that are made, but also to criticize, all the conspiracy theories and all of that. All of this is important. But in development and in the big issues of the world, I think making sure that girls get education, that they get the opportunity to sustain their own living, that it has a multiple effect that you can't argue against anymore, because you can see it. If girls get educated, they will turn that education into positive things for their children again. You see that their children also will be educated. They will marry when they are older. It means that there will be less maternal deaths at birth. It's a lot of very good positive things of that, but it's also, I think it gives a better vaccine against extremism and violent policy making, because education gives you the possibility to question the motives and understand the history in a totally different way.
But we talk about gender equality as being a way of making sure that everybody is represented. You can't have a democracy if part of the population is marginalized or ignored. But how do you achieve that? How do you achieve proper democratic functioning societies where women are equal with men?
Well, it's a long job, or it takes a long time if you look at those countries where women today have the least to say. But if you look at our countries in Europe, women have more or less the same equal rights as men have. They are a little bit less represented than men are in politics and in decision-making bodies, with the exception of some countries. We still see there's a tendency that more men gets the most important jobs in countries.
And there was also a report from the Interparliamentary Union recently about women parliamentarians and politicians and the abuse that they have to suffer, the harassment that they suffer on a regular basis. So do men actually want to see gender equality?
Well, I don't want to sort of say men in this big box, because men are very different. They are as diverse as women are. But I still think there are quite a lot of men who feel that they are losing something when they see strong women. And what I see is that we know that especially men who may not be so satisfied with their own life get more aggressive towards women politicians and women with power, that means that they will harass them on social media, that they will discuss them with words and sexual wording that is offending to women.
And even death threats
and death threats,
violence.
Of course, and especially I see young women getting hit hard when they enter into politics, and young women with minority backgrounds also getting hit because they often get into a cross point between their family's background, our European society's demand, and then they get between two cultures and they get criticism for both sides. That's tough.
Norway has a good example, a good track record. How have you handled things? How have you addressed these disadvantages, if you like?
Well, first of all, there is a lot of women in Norwegian politics, and there's been that from the 80s. It's been, and of course we had universal suffrage, women's right to vote from 1913. We have a long history of women in government, but the really big move came in the 80s. And after that, we have had around 40% of our parliament have been women. And I think people are getting more accustomed to see women in. So then they don't feel that offended by having a woman prime minister. I'm the second one. I usually say that that's better than being the first because people are getting used to it. The idea that a woman can run the country. And what we do try is that we try to work on against hate speech. Social media makes this more difficult because the way people express themselves without filters in social media is difficult to handle. It also gives people, I think, who are receiving those messages a little bit tougher skin because they know it's they might never be able or dare to say it up front to you, the same things. But it's I think it's we work a lot to appeal to civil society, to youth groups, but also to parents. What you say around the kitchen table sometimes comes out of your children's mouth, and it might not be so nice.
When you look around at the other countries in Europe even, and you see the way that gender equality plays out in those countries, can you think of one thing that these countries, other countries should be doing that they're not doing, which would help improve the situation?
I think the basis of the Scandinavian women's participation is that we have understood to build societies where you can both have a career and be a mother at the same time. A lot of European countries think that you can either have a career or be a mother, or you can have a career and be so highly paid that you can afford to have somebody else take care of your children. We believe that in our egalitarian society in Scandinavia, well, we don't believe in that. I mean, we do believe that it's important to be able to have both this. This is about working hours. It's about childcare.
And the cost of childcare,
and the cost of childcare. And it's about maternity and paternity leave. Those are to understand. And I think in a lot of those European countries who now are seeing that the population is falling, they should start to look at the importance that women are, and to emphasize on the policies that make women not having to choose between being a mother and having a career, because then you lose out on a lot of talent. Nearly all European countries are investing a lot in their educational system, the universities and others, and then a lot of those who do take a long and costly university education have to choose between, do I want to have a family with children, or do I want to have a successful career? In our countries, we are managing to bridge that. And I think that's a choice you have to take away if you really want women into power.
Prime Minister Erna SOLBERG, tusen takk.